أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Alhamdulillah, we are starting with the fifth session in our discussion about the Imamat of the other Imams, and the title that we have chosen is Shia Islam from Imamiyya to Isna Ashariya. You know, the Imamat of the Imams after Imam Hussain alayhi salam. That's our focus and the purpose of these discussions. For tonight, again, I would like to begin with an ayat of Quran regarding the Ahlul Bayt, and that's the famous ayat known as Ayat Tathir from Surah Ahzab, which is Surah number 33, ayat 33. So remember that number, 33, 33. And the importance of this ayat is the emphasis that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used in using the words. If you look at the translation, I tried to make it a little bit more difficult. It's a very wordy kind of translation, but there was a purpose in doing that. Because in Arabic language, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to emphasize a point, He uses different terms. You have innama in the beginning, which is to emphasize. Verily and only. Exclusively Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is focusing on that topic at that moment. And therefore the translation, innama yuridullah, the way I try to put that, feeling in those words is, verily Allah only intends liyudhib ankum ar-rijs, to surely, again, la is there for emphasis. Although the verily has already come there, but again, surely keep, abomination, rijs, away from you, O Ahlul Bayt, وَيُطَحِّرَكُمْ تَطْحِيرًا, and to purify a thorough purification. Now, if you look at this ayat, the implication of this ayat is very vast. Number one, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does the irada, innama yuridu, when Allah intends something, nobody or nothing can come between Allah and His irada. So there is no possibility of saying this is Allah's desire, but it didn't happen. If He, as the last words of Surah Yasin says, innama amruhu iza arada shay'an, when He says something, it actually just happens and takes place. So the irada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absolute. There is no limitation there. On the other hand, those who are going to receive the taharat and infallibility, they also have absolute ability to absorb that. So you have the one who is giving them ismat and taharat. Then you have those who are capable of receiving, on the other hand. There is nothing in between to stop that process of Allah doing the irada and the murid and the murad happening at the same time. And when we look at this ayat, there's no way but to come to the conclusion that it is talking about the concept of infallibility. If Allah has purified somebody, there is no sense of saying that they can be misguided or commit sins in any sense. As far as the implication or the application of this ayat, who are the Ahlul Bayt mentioned in this, we have discussed this more than once in our majalis as well as in various discussions that we had on the weekly sessions. I'll just say that if you look at the context of the ayat, this is not a complete ayat. This is just one ayat, one sentence from a long ayat, which talks about the wives of the Prophet. But all the nouns before and after it, the pronouns are all feminine, but this one is masculine. And there was a reason for it, and the reason is basically to create this contrast between those who have been addressed in this ayat as opposed to the wives of the Prophet who have been addressed before and after it. For details, again, I'll refer you to my book, Shia Islam, Imamat and Vilayat. There I have discussed about this concept of Ahlul Bayt, and this ayat has been, discussed in detail. Benjamin, just off that. Last week, when we talked about the Imamat of the fifth and the sixth Imam, and then we looked at the issue of the Zaydiyya. One of the questions which came later on from the ladies was the issue that if Zayd bin Ali was not the person who started this or claimed to be the Imam, then who started and who carried this forward? Well, I'll just go back to what I had said last week. After the events of Karbala, there was a lot of depression among the Shias. They were quiet, they were under great distress, and where they were looking for somebody to come forward and basically give them political victory. And so, they would basically seize anyone who comes forward, especially if that person happens to be from the descendants of the Prophet, especially from the line of Ali and Fatima. And so it's not Zayd who is actually claiming to be the Imam. There were people who had these kinds of expectations, and Zayd just stood up for Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar. His uprising was to deal with the issue of injustice and tyranny of Banu Umayyah at that time. And so he did not claim to be the Imam, but later on people carried on this idea. And if you look at the discussions that we had, and we even forwarded the handouts in form of the prints of the slides that we had used, you will see that Zaydiyya, the way it exists now, cannot be classified as a Shia sect, because they believe in Abu Bakr and Umar, but not in Usman, and their fiqh is Hanafi fiqh. So from both perspectives, belief as well as laws, they cannot be classified technically as Shia. There was one group who used to believe in Amir al-Mu'mineen as the first one, but they are no more existing from very old time. The Zaydiyya that we have in Yemen technically cannot be classified as Shias. Moving on to tonight's discussion, I thought it's important for us to keep in mind the timeline of the individuals we have been discussing. I'm not sure whether you can see the names. Can you see it from there? I think it's important to keep this the corresponding lines of families who are basically involved in things which happen. Of course, that's Amir al-Mu'mineen there, and this is Abdullah ibn Abbas. And these are all direct descendants going on, one generation to another. Then we have Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Zayd al-Shaheed on this side, and his son Yahya, who also became Shaheed. Then we have Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, and of course then he has three sons, whom we'll discuss later on. But on this side, in the side of Imam Hassan, you have Imam Hassan, then Hassan al-Musanna, who is married to Fatima bint al-Hussein, his son-in-law of Imam Hussein. His son is Abdullah, and then Abdullah's son is Muhammad. Muhammad Hanafiya, Muhammad Nafs al-Zakiyya, we talked about him, that this line of Imam Hassan, especially Abdullah, being the older person as far as the age is concerned, compared to Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, he became the leader of the group which has started the uprising against Banu Umayyah. And in this process, they were supported by this group from Ali Abbas. because they are cousins in that way. And but Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam did not join them. And as I said last week, Abdullah started promoting his son Muhammad as the Mahdi. And when the meeting took place, where people like Safa and Mansur were also there, Muhammad was there, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam was also called to come in that meeting. Imam asked Abdullah, are you promoting your brother, or your son, as the leader for Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar? Then we'll go with him. But if you're promoting him as the Mahdi, he is not the Mahdi, he is not the Qaim of Akhir al-Zaman. It's not he, and it's not the time for somebody to come and appear with the sword. And they didn't like it. Abdullah basically accused Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam of jealousy. He says, you are jealous because my son is being promoted. And unfortunately, they were eventually, the power was taken away from them by this group, Ali Abbas, from Banu Abbas. They took the power, and it was in the year 135, this is the days of the Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, that Banu Umayyah rule comes to end. Banu Abbas come to power. The first Khalifa is Safa, who didn't really last that long, from 132 to 136. After him you have Mansur. After Mansur, Mahdi. After Mahdi there are two sons. Hadi comes first, and then Harun Rashid. And when Mansur came in, basically he's the one who started going after the descendants of Imam Hassan, because they were all partners. And now one partner has taken the entire authority, the power in his hand, although they talked about Ali Muhammad all the time. And so they always, felt threatened from Ali Muhammad in general, but specifically from Ali Hassan. And therefore the descendants of Imam Hassan were dispersed. They ran away to all different parts of the Muslim world at that time. Some of them succeeded in their own, creating their own kingdoms, all the way to Morocco now. Even you have the king there who is the descendants of, from the descendants of Imam Hassan. I have forwarded that also. I think you'll be getting it tonight in your emails. So keep that in your mind when you are studying the history of that time. One more important thing before we go to Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam is to keep in mind the difference between the era of Banu Umayyah and the era of Banu Abbas as far as the issue of Imamat is concerned. It's really amazing. This is something I just came to realize myself later on, that during the time of Banu Umayyah, although they were very zalim, very oppressive, but still the Imams had this ability to somehow publicly declare their successors. If not at the same time, later on. But they were able to do that. But during the time of Banu Abbas, things change. With coming of Mansur and his children later on, it became so difficult for our Imams that there were no more opportunity to declare and announce the successorship in a public way. The only way was just to inform individuals, especially the senior ashab of the Imams, with indications that you go and spread the word, not generally, but among those that you trust, because even the lives of the successors were under danger. And so you see that during the time of Banu Abbas, the Imams were constantly under surveillance or in prison. All the way you see Imam Musa al-Kazim, Imam Ali Rizvi, Imam Muhammad Taqi, Imam Ali Naqi, Imam Hassan Askari, all of them either were in prison or they were always, under the watch of the administration. And so keep that in mind, that from now on in our discussion, we'll be facing a situation where it's becoming very dangerous for the Imams to even to publicly announce who is going to be the next successor. Surveillance was there. Monitoring of the activities of the imams and the followers was there. Spies were sent to the imams and among the Shias. Informers were planted among the Shia groups. Not only Mansur himself, who started this whole process, Abu Ja'far Safa was somewhat, the first Khalifa was still lenient towards the Ahlul Bayt. But Mansur came and changed the whole policy, and even his governors were asked to follow the same system. And when he found any of those governors not following the policy, he would replace them. And so this was to the extent that we see Mansur even calling Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam all the way to Basra from Medina, and dealing with him in a very harsh manner. For the children of our time, maybe it wouldn't be a big deal to call the Imam in the front and make him stand, let's say that side of the table for even 10 minutes, because our society at the present time cannot comprehend what it means. But in the Eastern society, even now, they understand if a honorable figure is called by anyone, whether the ruler or a minister, and if they are not accorded the respect according to their status, considered to be respect, insult there. And so Imam is being called by Mansur, and he is not even being asked to sit down. He is being treated like any other, ordinary person, just to basically humiliate the Imam. And so keep that context in mind, that it was a very difficult situation when we talk about the Imamat of Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam. Nonetheless, Allah finds the way for the Imams to make their truth revealed among the people. As far as the seventh Imam is concerned, and this Imamat is very important for us, we'll be talking about it, that when we look at the subgroups among the Shias, the existing groups are there from, the division starts from 6th Imam onwards. And so the Imamat of Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam is a very important issue for the Shia Isna Ashariya. Many close Imam, companions of the Imam had asked Imam about the successor, and Imam responded to them. I'm just giving you the list from the chapter dealing with the narrations of the 6th Imam, appointing the 7th Imam. You have many people, Sayyid bin Mukhtar, Mu'adh bin Kathir, Abdul Rahman al-Hajjaj, Mufaddal bin Umar, Ali bin Umar ibn Ali, Mansur bin Hazim, Isa bin Abdullah bin Muhammad bin Umar bin Ali bin Abi Talib, Yaqub al-Sarraj, and Sulaiman bin Khalid. These are all the companions of the Imam who in different situations, at different times in their meeting with the Imams, they would raise this question, that may Allah keep you for a long time, but we know one day you're going to pass away. What will happen to us? This is how they would put the question. What will happen to us? Rescue us from the fire of Jahannam. Just don't leave us in darkness as far as the next Imam is concerned. And just to give you one or two samples of the narrations, we have Sayyid bin Mukhtar. He says to the 6th Imam, save me from danger. Take my hand away from the fire of Jahannam. Who do we have over us after you? And then at the same time he says that Imam Musa al-Kazim was a child in those days. He came in the room, and the 6th Imam said, he is the one who is with you as your master. Hold on to him. And so this is just one example of the narrations that we have in our sources, especially in Usul Kafi. But the most important, the dalil that we have for the Imamat of the 7th Imam is a very interesting will written by Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam. And it was really a very genius way of dealing with this problem. You had the enemy who were monitoring your house, your spies inside, among the communities, looking to find out who is the successor, so that Mansur's government can eliminate him. What does the Imam do? He writes a will where he mentions about 3 to 5 names. We have 2 different narrations on this issue. So let us look at the names first. Imam had 3 sons. The eldest one was Ismail. The second was Abdullah al-Aftah, and the third one was Imam Musa al-Kazim. There are 3 other important names that we have to keep in mind when we discuss that will of the Imam. One is Hamida, the mother of the 7th Imam. She is probably from the area of North Africa. According to one narration, she is from Spain, but the popular view is that she is from North African area. And then you have Ja'far bin Sulaiman. Ja'far bin Sulaiman is the governor of Mansur in Medina. And finally you have the name of Mansur, the second Khalifa of Banu Abbas. Now keep those names in mind. In history we have a very interesting narration. Mansur had a secretary, Katib, somebody who was very close to him, his confidant, and on all major issues, Mansur used to consult Abu Ayyub al-Khubi, and he also was the scribe of Mansur. All important letters of Mansur, dictated by Mansur, but written by Abu Ayyub. He narrates that one day in the middle of the night, I was called by the servant of Mansur. Khalifas, when you work for them, it's 24 hours. There's no day and night or, my office hours off. In the middle of the night, Mansur sends somebody to Abu Ayyub and he is called. And he realized this must be a very serious issue. And so Mansur then showed him the letter of Ja'far bin Sulaiman, the governor of Mansur in Medina. And this discussion is going on in Baghdad. And he said, look at the letter. Ja'far bin Sulaiman is saying that, Ja'far ibn Muhammad has passed away. So he, recites, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They had their own diplomatic way of saying all these things. Oh, who can be like Ja'far? There is no one like Ja'far, although he's the one who used to oppress him. And then he says to Abu Ayyub, write the reply to Ja'far bin Sulaiman's letter. So Abu Ayyub says, I wrote the initial remarks, Bismillah and whatever is to be written after the titles and everything. Then Mansur dictated to him, write to him that if Ja'far bin Muhammad has made a single individual his wasi, executor of his will, then get him brought to you, cut off his head and send it to me. Just a moment ago this person was saying, oh, who can be like Ja'far? Nobody can be like Ja'far, and now he's saying, go and find out who is the wasi. If there is one person whom he has appointed as his wasi and successor, bring him to your office, cut off his head, send it to me. So this letter goes to Ja'far bin Sulaiman, and Ja'far bin Sulaiman basically responded to it, and the response was very interesting. He said, I went around, looked for his will of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, and he has appointed 5 individuals as his wasi. And then he wrote the names. He says, the first one there, Abu Ja'far Mansur, the Khalifa himself. The second name is Muhammad bin Sulaiman, the brother of the governor. He says Ja'far bin Sulaiman is the governor. He had a brother who was the governor in Kufa by the name of Muhammad bin Sulaiman, a very influential person in Abbasid government. And so he said the second wasi is Muhammad bin Sulaiman. The third one is his older son Abdullah, because Ismail has died. The fourth one is his younger son Musa, and the fifth one is his wife Hamida. And then at the end, Ja'far bin Sulaiman concludes in this letter, he says, there is no way to kill these people. You have ordered me to kill them, but I cannot do this because you are the first one in the list. Now, you start thinking what's going on. But what the Imam had done was, Imam had written a will in a way which was intended to become a public knowledge. People will find out. And different groups will read it differently. The enemies will be confused. Mansur was looking for the wasi of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq to behead him. He will be now confused, he can't do anything. The Shias will be able to go through the process of elimination and come to the name of the true wasi of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. Now how do you go through the process of elimination? The Shias, when they read this, they know Mansur cannot be the wasi. This is just a political game Imam has played against the enemy to confuse them. Muhammad bin Sulaiman is from the same group, so he cannot be there. Number 5, Hamida is a lady. She cannot be the Imam, so you eliminate 1, 2, and 3. You are left with 2 names. Both of them are sons of Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam. Abdullah is older one, Musa is younger one. Think about it. If the older one was eligible for Wisayat and Imamat, Imam would not include the name of the younger one. When you put it together, the name of the younger one is an indication that the older one is not eligible for this. And that's where you eliminate even the name of Abdullah, and you are left with the name of Imam Musa bin Ja'far alayhi salatu wassalam. Does it make sense? Are you sure about it, or do you want me to repeat it? I'll go again through it, but in the words of somebody else. A real situation at that time. A very prominent Sahabi of the Imam by the name of Abu Hamza al-Somali. Abu Hamza al-Somali is a companion of the 4th Imam, the 5th Imam, the 6th Imam, and even 7th Imam. But he has heard more from the earlier Imams, not the 7th Imam that much. If you, I don't know how many of you know this booklet of Imam Zain al-Abidin by the name of Risalat al-Huquq. That Risalat al-Huquq is a narration of Abu Hamza al-Somali. So he's a very important Sahabi of our Imams. And the way he heard this will of the Imam, because then this became a public knowledge. And his reaction shows to us that this was done in such a super way by the Imam that really he confused the enemies and informed the Shias about the truth. Abu Hamza, there is a narration that we have from Qutbuddin al-Rawindi, where Abu Hamza lived in Kufa at that time. When the wafat of the 6th Imam happened, he was there in Kufa, and we have a narration from somebody, a Shia who traveled all the way from Khurasan was going to Medina to meet the Imam. On the way, he stopped in Kufa to do the ziyarat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he says, I reached to Kufa, I went for ziyarat, and after ziyarat I saw in one area of the haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen, there were some people sitting there in a circle, and a sheikh was talking to them. Basically, he realized this was somebody was teaching. So he asked them, who are these people? And he was told they are Shias. And that sheikh of this group is Abu Hamza Somali. He says, I was there sitting and listening to him when a traveler, an Arab, came from the desert. He came to this gathering and he says, جئت من المدينة وقد مات جعفر بن محمد عليه السلام. He says, I'm coming from Medina, and the news that I have is that Ja'far bin Muhammad has passed away. According to this narrator, he says Abu Hamza became very distressed. He hit his hands on the ground, started crying, and then he asked this traveler, "Did you hear about the will and the wasiyat of the Imam?" And he says, "Yes." Now in this narration there are only three names. أوصى إلى ابنه عبد الله وإلى ابنه موسى وإلى المنصور. He says, according to my information, he made the wasiyat and he appointed his wasi Mansur and Abdullah and Musa. As soon as Abu Hamza heard these words, he says, Alhamdulillah alladhi lam yudillana. Thanks to Allah that He did not abandon us. This was a gratitude towards Allah. He says, Dalla ala al-saghir wa manna ala al-kabir wa satar al-amr al-hazim. That Allah, by this will, the Imam indicated to the younger one, excused the older one, and hid the great matter of Imamat from Mansur. He got confused with this issue. And this is where we see that, an individual like Abu Hamza Thumali, when he heard this wasiyat in this way, he realized that Imam wanted to confuse the enemies, but pass on the message very clearly to his own followers. Of course, now the narrator goes on to say, I asked Abu Hamza, I didn't understand what you are saying, can you explain? So he basically went into more elaboration of, talking about this process of elimination and proving that Imam Musa al-Kazim was the wasi and the successor of the sixth Imam. Now, problems. Ismailiyya is a problem. But before that, let me just very briefly talk about another group called Fathiyya. Fathiyya is from Aftah. Aftah is the nickname of Abdullah, the older brother of Imam Musa al-Kazim. And he was known as Aftah because he was slightly lame, in walking. He was slightly disabled. And there was a group of Shias who had this notion, and this is the question I would like to ask you. Does the imamat goes automatically from the father to the eldest son? Imamat does not go by hereditary line. Even if it goes, that is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not necessary that it goes to the eldest son. So you had Ismail who had passed away, then you have Abdullah who is surviving after the wafat of the Imam, and then you have Musa al-Kazim who is the third son. And according to our belief, the imamat went to Imam Musa al-Kazim. But there were many people, well, I shouldn't say many, there was a small group who had this notion that, well, the eldest son, the eldest surviving child would be the son would be the imamat. And so they started believing in Abdullah al-Aftah. And that group came to be known as Fathiyya. Of course, they didn't last long because, the reality of Abdullah bin Aftah was exposed. He himself actually claimed to be the successor. So keep that in mind. That doesn't mean that he is son of the Imam. Son of the Imam is not Masoom. Ismat doesn't come by birthright or hereditarily. Now, Abdullah al-Aftah, when he claimed, his imamah did not continue because of the lack of knowledge. He was exposed very quickly. And I'll just give you one example containing that narration of this person from Khurasan who traveled all the way to Kufa, and then he went on to Medina. He says that when I was there in Khurasan, I had some amanat from the Shias, hukuk money and many other things, some of the gifts that they had given me to pass on to the Imam. Especially there was a lady who had asked me to take some money on her behalf, and a large handkerchief that she had made. She wanted to gift it to the Imam. So he had taken all these things. He said, I went to Medina and I asked people, and some of them told me that Abdullah is the Imam. So he said, after the ziyarat of Rasulullah, I decided to go and at least see him. He says, I went, and I basically, when I went there, I saw that, the house had a curtain, very beautiful, with perfume, everything was clean. So right away he had some mixed feelings. This is more like a worldly, audience that this person is holding. So he says, when I went inside, he was sitting in his own special place. I sat down and I asked him, أنت وصي الصادق الإمام المفترض الطاعة. He says, are you the successor of As-Sadiq alayhi salam? Are you the Imam whose obedience is a duty upon us? And he said, yes. So this person started asking questions. He asked him 2 questions and he left. The first one, he says, if I have 200 dirham, how much zakat is in there? He says, well, from 200 dirham you have to pay 5 dirham because the zakat is 2.5%. So then he asked him, what if I have only 100 dirham? He said, then, well, it will be half, 2.5 dirham. Whereas we know in Shia fiqh, the minimum level where zakat becomes wajib is 200. If you have only 100 dirham, there is no zakat there. And this person already, he knew this was intentionally, he was putting this a trick question that if I had 200 dirham, 5 dirham would be the zakat. What if I have 100? He should have said nothing. Because if you have less than 200, then there is no zakat on you. So the first mistake he made was that. And then he asked him, وَرَجُلٌ قَالَ لِإِمْرَأِهِ أَنْتِ طَالِقْ بِعَدَدِ نُجُومِ السَّمَاءِ هَلْ تُطْلِقْ بِغَيْرِ شُهُودٍ. Suppose a person says to his wife that I give you talaq as many times as you see the stars in the sky, and there are no witnesses there. Is that divorce valid? We know in the Shia system, for talaq to be valid, you need 2 adil witnesses. The answer of Abdullah was, yes, the number of stars as witnesses is enough, and they are, divorced 3 times. And this is where this person realized that I'm in the wrong place. So Abdullah then asked him, do you have something for me from Khurasan? He said, well, I don't have anything. You see, he realized he's not the rightful person to be given anything from the Shias who were giving me these items. So then he says, I was very, worried. Where do I go? He says, I went to the Qabr al-Nabi again, and there a black slave came to me, and he did salam, and then he says, the person that you're looking for, I know where he is. Come with me. Now this was the first indication, because nobody knew what he was looking for. And so a stranger comes and says, I know where you want to go. Come with me. And so he takes him to Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam, and there, before even saying anything, Imam says, Ya Aba Ja'far Ijlis, mentions his name. And so this was again satisfaction for him that I have now reached to the right place. And that's where Imam then said, I think you have amanat for me from Khurasan. And then Imam mentioned to him, open this bag. And Imam told him that this comes from so-and-so lady who had asked you to send this with a handkerchief for me. And so these were all, indications for him to realize that he is in the right place. And so this is just one example that, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, under very difficult circumstances, he wrote that will, which was done in a very difficult time. This is what we have to appreciate, that our Imams have gone through great, extent of danger, but to make sure that the community realizes who is the Imam, and the process continues even after that. Salawat. Now, among the Shias, we have a group known as Ismailis. And they are still, existing. and sometimes we call them Shish Imami. What does it mean? This is not Arabic, this is Farsi. Shish means 6. Shish Imami means those who believe in 6 of 12 Imams. So this is how we identify them. We use their names because it is with the 6th Imam that they separate from us. And so for us, the issue of Imamat of the 7th Imam is very crucial in order to prove that our line from the 6th Imam going to Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam is the right way of Imamat. Now, just a brief, introduction to this group. Number one, the name Ismaili, although I'm sure most of the people think that Ismailis means those who believe in Aga Khan. Well, Ismaili is a term used for both the Aga Khanis as well as the Bukhris. Technically, both of them are Ismailis because they believe in Ismail bin Ja'far after the 6th Imam. And the technical name for the Aga Khanis is Nizariya Ismailis. So Ismailis are divided in 2 groups. Nizariya are the Aga Khanis and Musta'liya are the Bukhris. That's the technical name for the Bukhari. They believe that the Imam after Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam was Ismail, the eldest son of our Imam. I have a chart which I had actually presented here in 1998 on a overhead projector at that time in one of the majlises. Let me see. Okay, I have to go to another program for that. Okay. Can you see that? Okay, if you look at the top there, I have the name of the 6th Imam. And the number is 6 and 5. Anyone knows why? From our point of view, Imam Ja'far Sadiq is the 6th Imam, from the Ismaili point of view. But it is not something they believed from day one. Initially they believed Imam Hassan also, but later on in history they went and revised their belief and they eliminated Imam Hassan. Because they had this theory which comes from actually ancient Persian philosophers of number 7. Number 7 is a very important figure in their belief system. Even in Anbiya they say, somehow all the Ulul Azm Payghambar are 7th after the one before or something like that. And so they wanted to give the position of importance to Muhammad bin Ismail, the son of Ismail. In order to do that, they had to go through the list and look at something which is abnormal, and they saw, well, you had two brothers there, it should be father, son, father, son. So they decided to eliminate Imam Hassan. I have a copy of a madrasa book of the Ismailis, where they have a family tree of the Imams in the tree and the leaf form. They included the name of Imam Hassan, but you will see all the other Imams have a number by them, but Imam Hassan just has the name without number there. So Imam Ali becomes first, Hussein becomes second, and on that counting, Imam Jafar Sadiq becomes fifth, Ismail becomes sixth, and Muhammad becomes seventh. Because the actual founder of the Ismaili madhab is not Ismail bin Ja'far al-Sadiq, it's Muhammad bin Ismail. And so, well, we are here. Then you come to this line here, the descendants of Muhammad bin Ismail are the one who were known as the Fatimid caliphs of Egypt, starting with Ubaidullah al-Mahdi. This is 298 to 366. Going on to the last Fatimid Khalifa was Muntasir Billah. Then they were divided in two groups. Muntasir had two sons, Musta'la and Nizar. And they were opposed to one another. He lived in Egypt, and they were technically known as Western Ismailism. And those who followed the other brother, Nizar, they are known as Eastern Ismailis. And they were mostly found in Iran and Syria. It's this branch which goes down. You come to the 21st Imam, Tayyib bin al-Amir. And this 21st Imam of the Bohri Imam is the last Imam. And he's living and he's in Ghaibat. Did you know about that? You thought only we believe in Ghaibat? Only the Isnaisharis are the unique? No. Even Bohris believe in the 21st Imam as the last Imam. He is living and he is in Ghaibat. On the other hand, you have this group. The line here is solid, but the line here is faint. This is Hassan bin Sabbah, who became their leader in Iran. The link of this guy with this family is not that well, established, even this family line. There's a lot of doubts about it. But it's he who actually took the Ismaili Agha Khani group, which is now known as Agha Khani, very much away from mainstream Islam. And among his descendants, you have Agha Khan Mahallati, who ran away from Iran. He became son-in-law of one of the kings of Iran, in Mazandaran, which is in the northern part of Iran. And then he wanted to carve his own kingdom there. There were problems. His father-in-law threw him out. He ended up in Bombay in 1840. Then you have Ali Shah, his son, then Muhammad Shah, and then you have Karim al-Husseini, the present Agha Khan number 4, who is the 49th Imam. And this group, basically, the Agha Khanis are known as Nizariya Ismailis. And on this side, you have, they were mostly in Yemen, and then in the 16th century, they went to Bombay. Now, the leaders that they have now, both this Dawoodi and Sulaimani Bohras, their leaders are called Da'iya Mutlaq. They are not called Imams, because Imam is the last one, the 21st one. They are known as Da'iya Mutlaq, even the one who is now in Bombay. And they are basically the present leader of the Bohris. Inshallah, some other time, because we have to move on with our discussion. Okay. Now we actually have to look at we are not concerned about the Imamat of both of these two groups, the 21st Imam of the Bohris or the 42nd Imam of the Aga Khanis at the moment. For us, the main issue is the division after the 6th Imam. You have Imam Musa al-Kazim al-Islam on one hand, then you have Ismail on the other hand. And that should be our focus of discussion on this issue. Number one, historically, of course, Ismail is the oldest of the son of the 6th Imam. His mother is Fatima, granddaughter of Imam Hassan. So from both sides, he's, from Ali and Fatima. He was born in the year 101 or 104 of the Hijrah, and he died in 138 or 145. Now, the wafat of the 6th Imam was in 148. So Ismail died, a few years before the wafat of his father. His death before his father is unanimously accepted by even the Ismaili sources. There's no denial about this issue. And I'll just give you one quotation. There's an Indian scholar by the name of Asif Faizi, an Ismaili scholar of this century. I don't think he's alive now. He's even actually translated one of the Shia earlier books, the I'tiqadat of Sheikh Saduq, which was published in the West long time ago. And he, in a book called Religion in the Middle East, it's a compilation of different articles. His article on Ismailis, let me just read you one quotation. And this is an Ismaili scholar. He says, Ismailism takes its name from the eldest of the sons of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. It appears, now look at the words carefully, it appears, he's not sure about it, it appears that Ismail was appointed the heir apparent by the 6th Imam Ja'far, but later incurred the displeasure of his father. The causes are not known, but it is suggested that he was addicted to drink. Ismail was addicted to drink, therefore his father didn't like him and dismissed him. As Ismail died before his father, his son Muhammad, the 7th Imam, according to the Ismaili computation, was given a special status. So you have a modern Ismaili scholar accepting that Ismail died during the lifetime of his own father. Now if he died when his father was alive, he becoming an Imam afterwards, the question doesn't arise at all. And this issue of, he being drunkard and things like that, we leave it to the Ismailis, but this is very well documented in their own sources. Some of our sources also go along with it. But some of the Ismaili sources that I was able to read, they explain it in a very beautiful way, the way, their friends do now. That जब बड़े साहब पीते हैं तो शरबत बन जाता है. You must have heard about it. This is not a new justification. They write actually about Ismail. They said when Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq appointed Ismail, so Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq was Masoom. He could not have appointed anyone but Masoom. And so if Ismail drank, somehow it transformed into something else. Because you have to safeguard his infallibility. So they have their own ways of, explaining it. But this issue was there. The second thing we have to keep in mind is the issue that, there are clear ahadith from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq denying the imamat of Ismail. This question arose at that time because people had this, misconception that, well, you have Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, then you have his elder son. They assume by themselves that the next Imam would be Ismail. And so this question came up many times. I'll just give you a couple of narrations here. One is from Walid bin Sabih. He says that I and Abdullah al-Jalil were having a discussion in which Abdullah al-Jalil says that surely a Sadiq appointed Ismail as his successor. So Walid bin Sabah says, then I went to see Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq and I mentioned to him that so-and-so was telling me that you have appointed Ismail as your successor. And he says, Imam responded to me by saying, O Walid, know by Allah, for I have not done so, and Imamat is for so-and-so, referring to Musa al-Kazim. And he named him, that Imam belongs to my third son. So Ismail was alive at that time. Abdullah was alive, but Imam is pointing to his third son, Musa al-Kazim, alayhi salatu wassalam. Then we have another narration by Ismail ibn Amir, who says that I went to the Imam, and this has happened with many Imams. People would go to the Imams, and just to assure themselves that they have the true belief, correct aqidah, they would narrate their belief to the Imam, that, oh Imam, listen to me. Am I right in what I'm saying? That I believe in one God, I believe in Muhammad as the last prophet, I believe in the Quran and this and that, and I believe in the Imams. And then they would narrate the names of the Imam one after another until that Imam that they are, sitting with. And similarly, Ismail bin Amir says, I visited Imam al-Sadiq, described for him the Imams until I reached to his name. He said that you are the Imam now. And then he said, I said, and Ismail is the Imam after you. He had just assumed because he is the next eldest son. And he says, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq turned to me and he said, as for him, no. And still my name you are okay. But now that you say Ismail, no, Imamat does not go to Ismail. There is another third narration from Abu Basir where he says that I was sitting with the Imam discussing the successors of the Prophet, and he also mentioned the name of Ismail. And there Imam says, no, by Allah, O Abu Muhammad, this is not up to us. It is not up to anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the high and the glorified, and He reveals the names one after another. Then if you look at this second issue, we have very clear indications from the Ismaili sources also, basically saying that Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam appointed Musa al-Kazim as his successor. Not only when he was too close to death, even when the time when Imam Musa al-Kazim was still very young, even before the emergence of Banu Abbas, when the time was okay for Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Just one narration. We have Ibrahim al-Karkhi. He says, I visited Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. So al-Kazim, who was still a young boy, Imam stood up, kissed the boy, and clearly declared that he is the next Imam. And then the hadith goes on to say, Ibrahim says that while we were discussing, one of the spies of Banu Umayyah came in. It means this conversation took place before the Banu Abbas came to power. And Imam Musa al-Kazim was still very young. Even in that time, Imam made it very clear by indicating that, Imam Musa al-Kazim is the Imam after me. And, even Ismaili sources of the early days, when they talk about the history of Imamat, they say that, yes, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq appointed Musa al-Kazim. But then how do they justify their own belief? They said, well, it was done under taqiyya. Ismail was the real Imam to protect him from the enemies. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq projected Musa al-Kazim. So Musa al-Kazim would be sacrificed for Ismail. This is how they try to, basically make up the story of trying to justify their own belief. And so the question comes up, we are running out of time here, but, so who promoted Ismailism, if Ismail not himself? Because he died when his father was alive. Didn't even get chance to promote himself. It was done by his sons, Muhammad and Ali. And they actually, and that's why if you look at the number of the Imams, they wanted to put Muhammad bin Ismail as number 7, as the important Imam after Rasulullah. And that's why they gave him that number 7. And he actually played a very dirty game, he and his brother Ali. In the Shahadat of Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam, both these two brothers, the sons of Ismail, are implicated. They were the one who used to go to Harun Rashid, and they would say, oh, you know, they are not one, there is no one Khalifa in the Muslim world, there are two Khalifas. One is you in Baghdad, another one is our uncle in Medina. People send money to him. You know, people are willing to die for him. So they basically, you know, created this fire of jealousy and anger and hatred in the heart of Harun against Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam. So these people basically promoted their own madhab. It's still going on, but they are also implicated in the shahadat of Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam. Even though they are grandsons of Imam Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, you know, from the descendants of Ali and Fatima, but on this issue, of course, we do bara'at against them, because they are implicated in the shahadat of our 7th Imam. We'll conclude, inshallah, next week. I think I still would like to discuss this issue of Ismailism, a little bit of their history, especially keeping in mind that, you know, the Khoja Shia Islam came from that branch. So we would like to have a little bit of discussion about the history of the latter days. So we'll continue this discussion, inshallah, next week on Wednesday. Any question for tonight? Yes. Well, probably they are referring to, there is another group who, and that's when we talk about Imam Reza alayhi salam, there is another sub-group which came up by the name of Waqifa. Inshallah, we'll talk about them later on. Yes. In the list, they still write the name of Imam Hassan. They don't delete the name, but they don't give the number there. We'll talk about it next week. Yeah. Let us conclude with dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.